Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make our rustic farmhouse snowman. This is a really quick and easy project. He has a little rustic touch, but a really modern and clean design. I've used 2 strands of bulky weight yarn for the body. I've used 2 strands of worsted weight yarn to make the hat. And we've added some sticks for arms and the twine around his neck. We have a little weighted bag inside and stuffed with polyester fill. So for the body of the snowman, I'm using Wool of the Andes bulky weight yarn, and I'm using the color white, and you're going to only need 1 hank to make the body. If you're making 2 snowmen like I did, then just work from each hank holding together 2 strands. So here I have this left over from 1 hank, so I could make another snowman. Now this is using almost exactly 1 hank of yarn, so it is important that you are on track with the gauge and the sizing, or you may use a little bit more yarn with your snowman. So just to be sure that you're on track, I have about 5 stitches and 4.5 rows in 2 inches. But also in the pattern, I give the circumference measurements so you can see sort of that your snowman is coming out approximately the same size. Now you could also work from 3 strands of worsted weight to make super bulky yarn, or use super bulky weight yarn to make this snowman. So you can use any worsted weight that you have. Any scrap yarn is fine for the hat. I just love the look of the tweeds. So I used black as well as gray for one of my hats, and I just doubled it up so it's nice and thick and quick to make, but you're only going to use a little tiny bit. So if you have some scrap yarn in your stash, that works out perfect. You'll also need 2 hook sizes for this pattern, a 6.5 millimeter as well as an 8 millimeter hook. So we're going to need a stitch marker, and I'm using the 8 millimeter crochet hook. So we're going to start with a magic ring. Wrap that around your index finger 3 times. Take your hook, sliding it through all 3 loops. You're taking that first loop, pulling it through the other 2. And I'm going to chain 1 to get that secured. Now to start this off, we're going to do half double crochets, and we're going to work 10 in the ring. 2, 3. Okay, so once you've worked 10, let's push the work out of the way so we can pull in this ring tight. So I'm going to pull my tails. You're seeing here, it's not pulling everything in, it's only pulling in 2 of the loops. So we're going to grab the ones that it started to pull, give them a tug, it'll pull the other loops for you. Then just take the tail, and this is nice and tight, it's not going to come undone. Now we're going to start working in a continuous round, and this is why we'll need the stitch marker. So I am going to go through the back loop only, and I'm going to crochet 2 single crochet in the back loop of each stitch around. So 2 single crochet, and then I'm going to add my stitch marker to the first, so it's going to mark the first stitch of the round. I'll work 2 in each, so we're going from 10 stitches to 20 stitches, and we're going to do a really quick increase here. We want to get this bottom section of our snowman worked up to 40 stitches. So we're going to do them all in one piece for his body, his 3 sections. And the bottom will be 40 stitches. So let's just get all the way around here. So we've got 2 in every stitch. All right, now we'll remove the marker, and the next round we will work 1 in the first, 2 in the next, 1 in the next, 2 in the next, in that alternating pattern. So we'll go 1, add the stitch marker to that first stitch, then 2 in the next. And we're doing back loop now for the pattern. So just always be going, and then that's going to give us that nice little ridged look that we're going for. So single crochet in the next, and then 2 single crochet in the next. And work this all the way around. Okay, so I now have 30 stitches. Take the marker out, and now we have another increase. So this time it will be 1 single crochet in the first 2, and then 2 single crochet in the next. So I've done 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll go back adding that marker in that first stitch of the round and continue. So 1, 2, and then 2 in the next. 1, 2, and then 2 in the next. Okay, so I will repeat that all the way around. Okay, so we're now up to 40 stitches, which is all the increasing we need to do. And we're going to do 8 rounds now at 40 stitches. So we're just working 1 in every stitch, but I'm going to continue to mark the first stitch of every round. And I'm also going to keep track of how many I'm doing. And sometimes I just use my stitch markers to keep track, because sometimes I get distracted and I'm not sure where I'm at. So always when I complete the round, I'll sometimes just place a marker or something that I have so that I can keep track of how many rounds I've done. Of course, we can count them as well, but when you're working in the spiral, sometimes that can confuse you. So just a little tip if you need help with that. So I'm now just going 1 in every stitch around. So I'm going to work that, and then I'll meet you up at the end. Okay, so I've completed my first round. So all I'll do is place a marker there, round 1, and I'll start on to round 2. Mark that first stitch of the round again. So I'm going to go ahead and work up 8 rounds, and then I'm going to meet you back up for the next step. Okay, so I've worked my 8 rounds, and what we're going to do now is add a little weighted bag. So you can use whatever you want to make this affordable. Now I have a bunch of these little bags that I purchased from Amazon, probably about 100, come for about $20, but you could use a Ziploc, you could use pantyhose cut. I've had different people give me lots of different suggestions, even an old sock, like anything that you can hold some either beads or really whatever. I've used rice. Now a tip that I also received from some people are to freeze the rice ahead of time, just so you don't want any bugs or anything getting into them. So lots of different things that you can use to weight it. The idea is we just want to have a little bit of weight at the bottom. It's just going to help it stabilize it. Give it that sort of weighted bottom so it's not falling over with just the stuffing. So I have a little weighted bag here. I'm going to put it inside. Shove that all in there. And then you're going to start stuffing it as well. So I like to get a little stuffing sort of around my bag, and I just want the snowman obviously to have a nice rounded shape. So you're going to stuff this as you go. So just have some of your polyester fiber fell handy to keep stuffing it as you work. So the next round, what we're going to do is some decreases. So we're going to reduce from 40 stitches to 30 stitches. So if you remember when we worked it up to 40, we did a single crochet in 2 and then we doubled it up. So this time to decrease, we'll work a single crochet in the first 2. Now put my marker back in the first stitch again so that that round is marked. And then I will decrease across the next 2. So we're going to go through the back loop, pulling up a loop, through the back loop of the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So a single crochet in the back loop of the next 2, and then a single crochet decrease, 2 together across the next 2. So single crochet, so we're going through the back loop, pulling up a loop, single crochet in the back, or go through the back loop, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and that's single crocheting 2 stitches together. So 1, 2, and then a decrease. Okay, and we're going to do this all the way around. And we'll have this reduced to 30 stitches. So I'm coming around, and the last decrease should be before the marker. So I'm doing 2 and a decrease. Okay, and now the next, we're going to do another decrease round. So we're going to reduce then from 30 to 20. So we'll single crochet in the first stitch, and then we'll decrease the next 2 together. So we'll get this marked, and then we'll decrease the next 2. So 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch, and then single crochet 2 together. So go through, pull up a loop, through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. So I'm going to work this all the way around. So now what we need to do is increase for our next section. So we're at 20 stitches. We want to increase back up to 30 stitches. So we're going to single crochet back loop of the first stitch, give that a mark, and then we'll work 2 in the next. Two single crochets in the back loop, 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next, 2 in the next. Okay, and we're just repeating this all the way around, and then we're back up to 30 stitches. Okay, so now that I'm up to 30 stitches, what we're going to do is 6 rounds at 30 stitches. So I like to pull out my little stitch markers again and just keep track. So once I do the first round, I'll just add my little stitch marker, and I'm going to go ahead and work up 6 rounds at 30 stitches. Okay, so I've worked the 1 round. I just put my marker over, and whatever you have for counters, I just really love not having to kind of overthink things, and if I can just keep track of things in a simple way, and stuff as you go as well. Can just keep stuffing it So I'm going to go ahead and do 5 more rounds and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so I've worked my 6 rounds and now we're going to need to do some more decreasing for our next round piece that will be the head of the snowman. So we'll work 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next, and then we're going to decrease the next 2. And I'll put my marker back. So we're going to repeat this all the way around. So 1 and then a decrease. Okay, I'm going to repeat that around. Okay, so I've decreased to 20 stitches and I want to do another decrease round. We're going to decrease this right down to 10. So this time we'll go and decrease every 2 stitches. So there's 1, put our marker back in and continue to decrease across every 2 stitches. So I'm going to repeat that around. And you want to keep stuffing it as you go. I'm going to add some more stuffing into this section. You can really stuff it as much as you want. Just want to make sure that it dents in. And I like to try to make them similar. I've maybe added a bit more stuffing to that one. That's okay if they don't come out exact. Usually your stuffing will give it a little bit of variance inside. Okay, so when you're happy with the stuffing, I added more into mine. I'm going to increase to go back up to 20 stitches for the next snowball that we're going to make. So now we'll go and work 2 in every stitch to increase back to 20. So in the back loops, continuing with the same pattern. I'll go back and mark the first stitch. So I'm going to repeat that around. Okay, so now I'm going to work 1 in every stitch around, and we're back up to that 20 stitches. And I'll make sure to mark my first stitch. And I'll pop up how many more rounds you're going to work at the 20 stitch mark. And I'm just going to continue again to use my stitch markers to mark each round. So I'm going to work my rounds off camera and then I'm going to meet you up when I have them complete. Okay, so I've worked a total of 6 rounds and we're going to do our final decrease. Make sure that you have your head stuffed enough before you close it up. Okay, so we'll decrease every 2 stitches to decrease from 20 to 10. Okay, so I'll repeat that around. So once you get all the way around, we're going to fasten off just make sure that you're happy with your stuffing, and then we'll use a yarn needle, pull this through. And we'll weave through the front loops of every stitch around. And this is going to pull the top tight. Just like that. So now if you're unhappy with the stuffing, you can always pull this back and add a little bit more in. You can mold it with your hands. My bottom isn't looking quite as round, so you can squish it around and just mold it to try and get it into a nice shape. Okay, so once you finish weaving, you can just trim your end. You can do a little exploring and find some little sticks you can use for your snowman's arm. Now you can stick them in like this, or you can also take your glue gun and add a little bit of glue just so that they don't fall out. Okay, so our next step is to make the hat. So I love, you can really use any scrap bits of yarn that you have. So if you have some black, I love the Brava Tweed look for the hat, but I am going to make it in a different color just so it's a little bit easier to see. But I love the black tweed for my snowman. But I'm going to work one up in gray just so it's a little bit easier for you to see on camera. Okay, so for the hat, I want to double it up. So we're going to use 2 strands. So we can pull from the inside of the ball. I know that this can sometimes be a little bit messy when you're pulling yarn out, but remember, you can use scraps that you have. You don't need to pull into a new ball. Okay, so we're going to be using the 6.5mm crochet hook, and we're going to start out with a magic ring. So I'm going to wrap the yarn around my index finger 3 times, take my hook, sliding it through, grab your first loop, pull it through, and we'll chain 1. Now we'll work 10 half double crochets in the ring. Okay, now I like to just push all my stitches out of the way so I can see my loops. I'm going to start tugging on the tail. It only is pulling in 2 of the loops, not these other 2. So we're going to take the loops that started to pull in. We're going to give them a tug, and it's going to tug in the other 2 loops. Then you just take your tail and pull. And then we can do a slip stitch to join. Okay, so I've chained 1. Now we're going to work 2 half double crochets in every stitch around. So pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, go through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So we're increasing from 10 to 20 stitches. And this is going to be the top of the hat. So if you were going to adjust the size of the hat, this is where you would do that. So this will be the top, very top of the hat. keep my stitches nice and tight. I've chained 1. We're now going to work single crochets through the back loops only. So here's your stitch. You're just going through that back loop of every stitch around. And we're working 20 stitches. 1 in every stitch. So now we're going to slip stitch to join. If you want your join line a little less noticeable, I always use the reverse slip stitch to kind of hide. You can see when you do a regular slip stitch, you're going to get this little bump up. Okay, now watch how it's going to look different when you do reverse slip stitch joins. So when you do the reverse slip stitch, like normally we would be going like this and our yarn is to the back of our work. When we're reversing it, you want your yarn to the front of your work and you're going through the stitch from back to front. And I just yarn under, so I'm not worrying about trying to twist the yarn around. I just grab that yarn, pulling it through. You need to twist your hook and pull it through and we'll chain 1. So what happens is instead of this little bump up that happens with a regular slip stitch, it's bumping it to the back instead. So it just remains a little flatter, a little less noticeable. But it is just a little hat. If you struggle with that, don't worry, just go ahead and work a regular slip stitch. So now we're going to work single crochets into every stitch around. So we're working down now the sides of the hat. This is also where you can always alter the pattern if you want the hat taller or shorter. It just depends how many rounds you work. So I've worked around 20 stitches. We're going to reverse slip stitch to join. Okay, so my yarn is to the front, pulling it through, chain 1. So I'm doing a total of 4 rounds for the hat. So I'm going to go ahead and work 2 more rounds and then I'm going to meet you up for the next step. So I've completed 4 rounds. Now you'll want to do an additional round. So 1 more at a single crochet in every stitch. So a total of 5 rounds. Once your 5 rounds are complete, we're going to reverse slip stitch join. And then we're going to start working on the brim. So we'll chain 1. And for the brim, we're going to work single crochets through the back loop only. So when you look at the stitch, we're going through this back loop only of the stitch. And we're going to work 2 single crochet in every stitch around through the back loop only. So we're going from 20 stitches up to 40 stitches because we want the brim to flare out, getting our top hat shape. Okay, so I've completed that round. I'm going to reverse slip stitch to join. Chain 1, and for this round now we're going to just work 1 single crochet per stitch. So a total of 40 stitches. Okay, so we have the hat finished. I'm going to fasten off before I join. Okay, and now we're going to do the invisible join. So we're going to take our yarn needle. You need one for bulky yarn so you can get it through. And then what we're going to do is take our yarn needle. We're going to go through the first stitch right here. Pull that through. Then you're going to come and go through the back loop only of the last stitch. So you're going to get a little faux stitch right here. It's going to blend right in so you don't see. Now, if you wanted to keep the stitch count the same with the faux stitch, you would skip over one, but it's not really a big deal for this pattern. So we're just going to leave it like this. It doesn't matter that it ends up with one extra stitch right there. So then I'm going to take my yarn needle down through, hiding the yarn tail through the stitches. Just have to make sure when you do that you don't distort your stitch in any way, and then we'll weave it back. Then you can trim that. Okay, so now we do want to glue all of the pieces in place just so that our snowman isn't going to fall apart, but I'm going to show you what I like to do for his neck. So of course you can get creative, use any type of ribbon you want. Just an idea, you could use some velvet ribbon. You could put that around him. You could do a bow. You could just make it look like it's a little scarf around his neck. Use any color you want to match your home decor. I want mine to really have the rustic look that I'm going through for with most of my items. So I'm using some twine. I sectioned off 3 pieces at 38 inches. It's really long, but you can always trim or do a smaller section. And I'm going to take them and I'm just going to tie a bow, go around this way through, pulling that bow through. It's going to curl down, fiddle around with the size you want your bow. And then what I'm going to do is take my glue. I want to make sure that I glue his arms and also the hat. I mean, you don't have to, but just for making sure he doesn't lose his hat or it doesn't fall off. And you can put the hat on him however you want. I kind of like it angled to the side a little bit. So I'm going to grab my glue gun and we're going to glue everything in place. Okay, so I'm just going to go around. I mean, you could stitch the hat on as well, but this is just so easy and quick just to use the glue. Make sure you have it where you want. Put that on and then just take your glue. Just want to make sure you're sticking them sort of on the same row on each side. Uh-oh, I just snapped that stick putting it in. They are pretty brittle. I'm just going to add a little glue to fix that. But you can always go and find some more sticks if that happens to you. I have a whole pile of them that I collected because I wasn't sure how many little snowman I was going to make. So here is our finished snowman. He's so cute. So I have the two. I have one with the black hat and one with the gray hat. So get creative with your own embellishments to give them your own personal flair. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. So make sure to check that description box below the video for the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.